Hi lovelies, and welcome in my kitchen. Mabon, the festival of harvest of the fruits, is quickly approaching on the pagan wheel of year, and with it another reason to celebrate the abundance and blessings that Mother Nature has granted us over the year. The autumnal equinox, also called harvest home, is a time to reap rewards of efforts that we have sown throughout the year. It also stresses the importance of being grateful and sharing our gifts to ensure blessings in the following year. In essence, it is a feast of Thanksgiving, and today I would love to share an amazing recipe with you. Well, actually 3, that with its symbolism fits this celebration like a glove. We will be making an autumn veggie-filled cornucopia with a cheese and apricot sauce. A wonderful centerpiece for your Mabon table, or also a great festive dish to prepare for Thanksgiving dinner. But let's get started. As always, the exact measurements can be found in the description box below. By the way, if you don't like baking much, there is a cheat version of this, as you can just use store-bought frozen breadstick dough instead of making it from scratch. But here at the Witch's Cookery we are a bit old school, so let's get our hands dirty. We start by adding warm, not too hot or too cold water to a big bowl and mix in the sugar. This is to ensure that the yeast has something to feast on too. We want to add the active dry yeast and then let it sit for about 5 minutes or so until we see a slight layer of foam. Now that we have proofed the yeast, we can add oil, flour and salt. And simple as that, our dough is almost ready. Now we only have to combine the ingredients. You can do so by using a kitchen machine with dough hooks, or if you prefer to work with your hands, combine everything with a fork and then knead the dough with your hands. It is important that the dough doesn't feel too wet and sticky, so if need be, add more flour to it, so it is easier to work with later on. Then we coat a big enough bowl with a fine layer of oil or a sheet of reusable baking sheets, and then form the dough into a little ball to place into it. As always, we now have to patiently wait until the yeast has made it grow to double the size. And we do so by placing it covered with a towel in a warm and cozy spot. By the way, this dough recipe is also fantastic as basis for a pizza or for breadsticks. In about an hour, the dough should be ready to be worked with again. But for now we have to craft a cornucopia out of aluminium foil, as it will serve as the mold for it. It is easiest to use non-stick aluminium foil to be able to remove easier after the baking. But you can definitely also use regular one, as I'm doing right here. We first will have to shape a cone and then stuff it with little balls of aluminium foil so it keeps in shape. We also will have to bend the back part upwards so that it looks like a real cornucopia. It honestly is much easier than it sounds. After we finished our little craft project, we can reward ourselves with a glass of wine or make some cheese sauce, you know, whatever you prefer. When making this as a vegan or vegetarian version, you can of course go for any other dip or sauce, maybe some hummus, guacamole or a cashew dip. We want to start off by chopping up all the ingredients for it in small pieces. Onions, some chili, if you like it hot, and some walnuts, pecans or cashew nuts. Now we want to toss the bacon dices into a pan and start frying them until they start to brown. Then we can add the rest of our chopped up ingredients and let them fry until the onions get glassy. We reduce the heat and add in the apricot per serve. I imagine this would also go great with peach, yellow plum or raspberry jam. And let it cook until it is liquidy. Then add in the processed cheese. You can get creative here and choose cheese that you personally prefer. Very rich and creamy ones work best though. Next to the processed cream cheese, I used a very soft French goat cheese and last but not least a bit of sour cream. The combination of those flavors and ingredients will deliver a rich and aromatic cheese dip with a subtle sweetness to it, balanced out by the spice of the chilies and with an extra bit of salty crunch from the crispy bacon and roasted nuts. Absolutely perfect. Let the mixture cook on low temperature until all the cheese has melted, and do not forget to stir it often so it doesn't burn. Then you can add spices to your taste. I recommend nutmeg, smoked paprika, smoked salt and pepper. And our dip is done and can wait on the table for its grand moment. By now the dough should be done rising and we can continue with the cornucopia, our festive masterpiece. We want to deflate the dough, which can be done by simply poking it a bit, and then we prepare our working surface. I find it easiest to put some flour over my non-stick baking sheets and roll the dough out directly onto them, as it is the least messy to clean up. I might not be a lazy cook, but I'm definitely one lazy cleaner. Now, the dough should be divided in about 5 to 6 separate parts that you will roll out. It won't all fit on one baking sheet, unless you have an oven like the witch in Hansel and Gretel. You want to roll it out fairly thin, trying to keep a more or less rectangle shape, and then we slice it into stripes, each of them the same width. In order to wrap them around our cornucopia, we will set the aluminium figure onto a covered baking tray and then coat it all over with oil or butter, so the dough doesn't keep sticking to it once baked. Now we want to crack one egg and beat it with a little fork until you have a homogeneous mixture. If you want to make this vegan, just brush on coconut oil instead of the egg wash. It will give you a very similar effect. Then we start at the tail end, carefully wrapping the dough around it, always making sure the dough overlaps a little bit. In order to combine two dough strips, just coat the first piece with some egg wash and then put the next one onto it. We want to wrap all the way to the front, but leave the opening of the cornucopia open so we can later fill it. We can also decorate the rim with leftover dough, forming little flowers, plaids or ornaments. Once we are happy with our creation, we now apply the egg wash or coconut oil all over the horn to ensure that it browns well in the oven and comes out a golden glowing beauty. We put it in the oven at around 340 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes or so. Just have an eye on it and take it out once it looks all nice and golden. Please be sure not to put it too close to the top of the oven. The dough will still rise quite a bit. So while it is baking away, we now have time to make a veggie filling. For that, I just gathered different vegetables that are in season. As Mabon is a holiday celebrating the harvest of Mother Earth's offerings, I thought it would be a great dish to have either as a main or as a side if you're a convinced carnivore. To make it as healthy and as colorful as can be, I chose red onions, white onion, potato, yellow, red and green bell pepper, carrots, mushrooms and of course pumpkin. I personally prefer to use Hokkaidos for pumpkins, as you don't have to peel them. The peel will soften a lot when cooking and you can just eat it. Plus, it adds a lovely bright touch of orange to the finished dish. Place it all on a covered baking tray, and now we want to season this to our taste with some salt and pepper, maybe some garlic powder and some smoked paprika powder. And then we can top it off with a squeeze of fresh lemon and fresh herbs from the garden. You now want to add some oil or butter and mix it all together with your hands. This goes in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes. And look at that, what a coincidence. Our cornucopia is just finished, so we can just switch them out. You want to make sure that the cornucopia is mostly cooled down before removing the aluminium foil, so you don't rip it apart by accident. We want to be very careful, removing the stuffing bit by bit until everything is out. Now we can drape the horn of plenty on a nice plate, and once the veggies are done, we fill it with our Mabon harvest. A feast for your eyes and mouth. A beautiful and delicious decoration for the table. I would love to hear if you try this out and with what you filled your horn of plenty. Now, if you want to know more about the Festival of Mabon, don't forget to subscribe, as next week I'm taking you along in my Mabon preparations in a little vlog. I'll be sharing more about what the holiday entails and some ideas on how you can celebrate it. If you are interested in learning more about the pagan wheel of year and its holidays, there is a playlist at the end of this video and in the description box below, with other videos I have made. I wish you a beautiful celebration of the autumnal equinox. See you soon!